You've selected Topic 7, Risk Management, which is a part of the subject Building Industry Contracts. In this presentation, we'll describe the elements of risk management and be aware of the types of risks at phases of construction project in which you'd likely apply risk management techniques. So too far, let's just summarise some of the course requirements. If there's any questions or you require any further assistance with the subject, feel free to contact me via email or the Q&A forum. Also, using the student forums, you might find a discussion amongst yourselves, other students, is often very useful, and it's a great place to have discussions about the subject. Be very clear about assessment submission dates, the format of the submissions, and be very clear to yourself about when the actual submission dates. Extensions of time are rarely going to be granted in this subject. I'd also like to make it clear that this presentation is merely an overview of the subject risk management, and it's not intended to replace the study guide. You still need to refer to the study guide and the text in this course. Okay, now risk really is a part of living, I suppose. It's common to all of us in our lives, general lives and at work. There's very little activity when you look at it that's not subject to some kind of risk of one type or another. So risk management really is used extensively in the construction industry because it is there's a lot of things moving around, there's a lot of money moving around, a lot of high exposure to different types of plant and equipment and so forth. And so there's risk management applied at various stages throughout the procurement process and the delivery process. The correct application of risk management can assist greatly in a positive commercial outcome with the project, both in optimal time, cost and performance being achieved. It's important to note that the phases of the project which risk management apply, I've outlined them here. So at the initial appraisal, the outline or sketch design, detailed design, contract strategy and the construction all require risk management approach. Consider the definition of risk in the Australian Standard 4360. We can see here, risk is the chance of something happening that will impact upon objectives. It's measured by combining the magnitude of the potential consequence with the likelihood of the occurrence. If we consider the types of risks that we're going to come across, we've got business risks. This is risk associated with capital expenditure, possible income that might not come in that is important that it comes in. We've got the pure risk, which is in a sense, it's the event or the contingency which will result possibly in a possible loss. So that's the reduction of an asset or future earnings as a result of damage or loss of property, unexpected death or injury. Then we have speculative or commercial risk, and that's in this case there's both an upside and a downside risk, such as a new product, new market, starting up a new business. And finally, we have financial risk, which is the loss of financial capital. And the method of approaching risk management, however, is basically the same in all the types of risk, involving risk identification, analysis assessment, evaluating the loss options, and evaluating the finance options as well. Exposure is one side of the problem, but risk identification is really paramount. So knowing what you're exposed to, what likely risks are going to be present, what type of contingencies can you put in place, and what type of factors do we need to put in place and ensure that we can overcome a lot of the adversity of potential risk. So the important factor is to really know what type of risks are we being exposed to. And the interesting thing there is that a contractor generally under the terms of contract assumes most of the responsibility for the risk. That is a loss, damage, liability, whether it be costs or time. And the fact that the work is being undertaken at the principal's premises on their land imposes additional responsibilities on part of both of the owner and the contractor. So the fact that the contractor may be subject to these risks, plus maybe the impact in not achieving the project on time makes risk identification and measurement a very important process. The identification process then will benefit both parties. It makes good sense if it becomes a cooperative effort, which is what the contract does, wherever possible. As I said earlier, there's risks at all stages of the project. And a part of those risks are both technical and administrative. Technical meaning that there's peculiarities in construction methods or design which have a potential to cause injury to persons or damage to adjoining properties. There may be uncertainties due to soil texture or high water tables. So all these risks need to be taken into account, and they're technical. On the other side, there's administrative risks. So issues associated with statutory requirements to provide a safe workplace, inspections required under regulatory requirements, and risks associated with funding to the project, interfacing staff and working together. There's a number of different risks that need to be identified at each stage. So the analysis and assessment is an important step in determining the objective, either objectively or subjectively, that the chance of an event, a high risk event occurring, how would it impact on the successful completion of the project. So the analysis and assessment, or otherwise we can call it the measurement, in respect to loss, damage, liability, is quite often made from historical claims or what other data we already have. That's sometimes from avenues such as Australian Bureau of Statistics, the ABS, or insurance underwriters. Construction's a little tricky that way though, I must say, because often there's risks associated with administrative or commercial areas. And so an objective approach isn't always possible. These type of risks may have to be assessed as low, medium or high, and appropriate decisions based on skill factors and previous historical methods of managing and working with these type of risks need to be included in the assessment. So these risks involve capabilities of personnel and adequate existing procedures. Next, to carry out risk analysis often involve three types. A sensitivity analysis, which is assesses the effects of the individual risks on the project. A probability analysis, which is the assessment of the probability or the likelihood of the occurrence on each possible risk outcome. And then a simulation technique, where the assessment is combined with individual risks and how this can affect the project in total. So in risk analysis and assessment, it's often difficult to try to identify a lot of those areas, and that'll vary from job to job. In these summarised points I've got here, in planning and proposal stages, I've identified political or environmental, and that those will vary. If you've got a project that is in a higher sensitive environment, it might be the barrier reef or a protected wetland, you're going to have both political and environmental risks associated with operating that project. A major option for the principal and building owner is quite often that the simple act of transferring the major part of the risk to the contractor. And this includes the risk of loss of damage to the works, loss, injury and costs. It also includes ascertaining the extent the contractor is prepared to carry the risk, and do they have the financial backing and soundness to carry this risk also. It's common for owners and principals to consider the requirement of bank guarantees be put in place by the contractor, liquidated damages, latent defects, warranty clauses. All these things need to be given careful consideration. The principal may even need to set aside a reserve fund for identified and measured risks, which for some projects sometimes there's components which are uninsurable, and this might be an unavoidable delay that can't be insured for. Transferring risks through modelled contracts such as BOOT, public-private partnerships, build, own, operate, transfer, are often a good vehicle for transferring the risk, as we've spoken about previously, with time, with quality, with financing, and at the same time there's long-term private ownership and obligations associated with these type of contracts too. So it removes, in most cases, the government will use these type of delivery contract vehicles, and it removes the government from a lot of the risks associated with financing, operating, building an asset. We've now come to the end of the Topic 7 presentation, and it's a good opportunity now for you to read through the study guide, refer to the subject text and any resource material that comes with this subject. And at the same time, I'd be working through those workbook activities as well while the topic's fresh in your mind. If you've got any questions, you can email me, or you can post it on the Q&A forum on the Moodle website.